Whew. What's going on, everybody? Samuel Barrett once again for episode 2 of covering the 2026 Alabama governor's race, which is coming up just next year, less than a year from now. Today is December 8th. Next year, November 3rd, the day I will turn 26 years old, we will vote for a new governor. However, there's another date before that that's going to be even more important. May 19th. That's the day I want everybody in Alabama to remember. May 19th. That is the day of the primaries when the Republicans and the Democrats choose their nominees. That's the day everybody remember. Go vote. Go vote in November too. Vote every time you can. That's what I do. I've got that right as an American citizen. I want to vote every time that. All right. May 19th and November 3rd. I will shout those dates from the rooftops to make sure people know those are the dates, because sometimes people don't vote because we didn't even know there was an election going on. Had I known, I would have went and voted. How do I know that's happened? Because it's happened to me. It was maybe a couple of years ago. I don't remember. But May 19th, November 3rd. Remember those dates. Next year in 2026, go vote. All right? And last episode, I just kind of introduced a few things. I've got to take some more notes now because there's been some developments. I want to try to keep this episode short, but I don't know how short I'm going to be able to keep it. Tommy Tuberville and Kim McPheeters, the two Republican candidates for governor. Right now, those are the only two Republicans. All right. There could be more. There could not be. That's a saga that's interesting in and of itself that I'm going to cover at some point. If you look, Tuberville has far more endorsements and he has far more money. He's endorsed by fellow Senator Katie Britt, and right now in the U.S. Senate, Tuberville is the senior senator from Alabama. Britt is the junior senator. Tuberville is endorsed by Rick Scott, who's a senator from Florida, probably because Tuberville lives in Florida. That's a part of that saga, too, questioning if Tuberville actually lives here in Alabama or not, because he's got property in both states. And he tries to use an exemption that his wife and son own a property in Auburn. And so therefore that either you live here or you don't. And at the end of the day, that's pretty much what it should be. Will Ainsworth, the current lieutenant governor, he declined to run for governor because a lot of people thought he was going to run. He decided not to, and he endorsed Tuberville. Nathaniel Ledbetter, the current Speaker of the House in the Alabama House of Representatives, he endorsed Will Ainsworth before he declined, and now he's endorsed Tommy Tuberville. And there's a few other folks, too. The only endorsement that I've been able to find for Kim McPheeters is the Alabama Cannabis Coalition in the primary only. The Alabama Cannabis Coalition has also endorsed Democrat Will Boyd, and that's also, I believe, a primary only endorsement, although I could be wrong about that one. All right. So as I said, Will Boyd, Democratic candidate, along with Jamel Brown, Yolanda Flowers, and Chadwick Martin. But just last week or so, the one... Okay, I'm just checking the news here. Right. The one candidate people were waiting on the Republican side, people were waiting for Tuberville to announce. On the Democratic side, people have been waiting for Doug Jones, former Alabama U.S. Senator, to announce his run for governor. And now he has. So now the media is pretty much thinking, okay, the governor race, Tubble versus Jones, and Tubble's gonna win. They just they're not talking about it too much because, well, everybody just thinks that's a foregone conclusion that it is what it is, and that's who everybody's gonna vote for. We have elections for a reason, and every candidate needs to get coverage, every one of them. But since it seems like covering the mainstream candidates is what gets you the most attention, I'm gonna try to boost my ratings a little bit. Let's talk about Tommy Tuberville. So we already know he's a former football coach, and he ran for Senate and is running for governor on. I coached football here in the state of Alabama, and y'all in Alabama love, love, love football. So vote for me because of that. Now, he'll try to mix in some political jargon. Or I'm going to work with President Trump to secure the border. We're going to lower inflation, lower tax, whatever he wants to say. But reality, it seems he missed the limelight of being a coach. And he felt like, I need to get that back. So he decided to run for Senate. He's got that. And now he wants to get his name back in the limelight and run for a different office. And so that's what he's doing. It's a shame with Tuberville because back in 2020, he ran for the Senate against a few candidates, Jeff Sessions being the primary opponent of Tuberville's. And they went to a runoff between Sessions and Tuberville. Tuberville won the runoff because Sessions at that point was seen as the establishment candidate, the one who just helps the government and the Fed keep on keeping on with their corrupt ways. All right. And people in this state, because we don't like supporting the establishment, people in the state voted for Tuberville because they figured he's going to buck the establishment. And perhaps he did to start with. Now he's simply become part of the establishment. From 2021 to 2025, in about a 4-year span, now he went from being against the establishment to being a part of it. I mean, how else do you justify passing the big, beautiful bill that allows for AI to spy on more Americans, including Alabamans? How do you vote against the release of the Jeffrey Epstein files, which could bring to justice victims of sexual perversion and could bring forth some threats to our national security, because many people believe Jeffrey Epstein was a national security threat who was working for some other nations. I mean, you take those two things alone for now. I don't know how you justify that without saying, oh, I've sold it out to the establishment. And it's obvious at this point because Tuberville has raised, I think I read yesterday, his campaign has raised over $9 million. Probably more than that, actually. I might have that underestimated. But he's raised more money than any political candidate in Alabama history. More than anyone else. And quickly, too. I mean, it's not even Christmas yet. And he's raised that much. So how do you get that much money so quickly? The answer? you have a bunch of people with a lot of money up in D.C. where he works, lining his pockets, saying, oh yeah, work for us, do these things for us, we'll give you this money to help you win the governor's office. Special interest groups, wealthy individuals, whatever it may be. That is not how government's supposed to work. It is supposed to serve the people, not itself. And we've got to have people who are going to buck that. And we thought Tuberville was going to do it. He has not. To vote for him again to be governor, need I repeat the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. If Tuberville isn't performing for us in the Senate, what makes us think he's going to perform for us in the governor's mansion and at the Capitol in Montgomery? And of course, Tuberville's also platforming education. I spoke last video about, if he cares about education so much, he'd speak out about our educational system rewarding athletes who don't care about the education over scholars who do. But he doesn't care about that. He doesn't care. Already talked about he doesn't live in Alabama. He's got property in Alabama and Florida, but Florida's his primary residence. By Alabama Constitution, which, by the way, if you have not read the Alabama Constitution, it's important enough to read the U.S. Constitution. Read the Alabama one too. But the reason a lot of people don't read it is because it is the longest constitution in the world. It's the longest constitution of any state, longest constitution in the entire world. The second longest constitution in the United States is that of Texas, and its word count is less than half of what Alabama's is. All right, so there's a lot. But state constitutions, all the state constitutions are longer than the U.S. Constitution, because the U.S. Constitution does explicitly state there are things that it doesn't cover that belong to the states to cover, which is a good thing. It gets those rights and policies closer to the people. Right? By state constitution in Alabama, you have to live in Alabama for the previous 7 years in order to run for governor. Apparently, his wife has a homestead exemption in Auburn, like I was mentioning earlier. But last go-around of elections, Tuberville voted in Florida. So he either did one of two things. He either voted in Florida illegally if he does live in Alabama, which is a problem, or he doesn't live here. He lives in Santa Rosa Beach, Florida, not too far from Destin. Right? He's even claimed that, he lived in Alabama for 10 years, including the time while he was coaching, and so that's good enough. It's just not true. It's got to be the previous 7 years prior to your campaign, at least that many. All right? And so people want to talk about Tuberville? Fine, we'll talk about Tuberville. But I will say, I've had some developments of my own. Because I told you I was going to look into the other Republican candidate, Kim McPheeters. I have. And you want to talk about an anti-establishment candidate. I encourage y'all to look at, because I don't want to just regurgitate everything he says like I'm a puppet of his. I don't want to do that. But I would encourage you to check out his website. There's not too much on it right now. but this is it. And there's some videos here. Like if you click on videos up there, there's ones of all sorts of things. Check out that little picture right there. Yeah, Dumbo Tuberful. Fear the ears. I like that. But on the website, there's some good stuff here. And there's also content. I reached out to Ken through this, and he got back to me in 12 minutes. Right? He's saying he thinks people are waking up to the establishment, and he doesn't have a staff. He needs all the help he can get. Let's talk. So me and him, 2 days ago, as he was driving back from Atlanta, he has a bicycle and he has a sign that says Ken for Gov, and he rode it around Mercedes-Benz Stadium before the Alabama versus Georgia SEC college football championship there, because there'd be a lot of people from Alabama there. As he was driving back, we talked for 50 minutes about policies, things like that. Very riveting conversation. And his big three platforms: food independence, rethinking our educational system, rethinking medicine. Because if you can't feed yourself, you really can't do anything else. Right? You have to be able to feed yourself to sustain yourself. Then other things follow that. Right? Rethinking medicine. We both agree the response of the country and of Alabama, thanks to Kay Ivey, the response to the 2020 virus was a huge mistake of shutting down businesses and schools and restricting freedoms. I mean, we had Kay Ivey put in a stay-at-home order and then a mask mandate just because every other state was doing it. It showed she doesn't have any backbone. And then for whatever reason, in 2022, people reelected her in the state. And that's the kind of thing we got to wake up to. We can't keep doing that. We can't keep electing people who are going to try to restrict our freedoms when we know that's what a lot of people in the establishment are trying to do. We can't reward them by keeping them in government even longer and risking us losing more and more of our liberties every year and every election cycle. We just can't keep doing that. And so we don't need to be voting for a radical left Democrat. Yolanda Flowers is not it. Among the Democratic candidates, Doug Jones and Yolanda Flowers, they're the worst ones. They don't need to be given any role. They don't need to be given the governor's mansion. Will Boyd into bed. Between Will Boyd, Jamel Brown, and Chad Martin, they're fairly moderate. Boyd is probably the most left of the three, followed by Chad Martin, followed by Jamel Brown. Jamel Brown is actually pretty conservative. He's just online. You can look him up. There's a lot of ratchet behavior that he engages in that, to me, we've got better options. And if we're going to have a governor who's going to be able to model a true man and somebody who our young people can look up to, we don't need Jamel Brown. So, to me, Kim McPheeters, if the elections were held today, Kim McPheeters would get my vote. And again, I could talk about a lot of the stuff a bunch. My last episode was 25 minutes. I want to try to keep this to 25 minutes too, so I got about 5 more minutes. When it comes to the COVID vaccines, I've got notes here. I want to make sure I get them right. There were 38,000 deaths from the shots, and less than 1% of adverse effects from the COVID shots were actually reported. So it means there could possibly be 3.8 million deaths among those reported and not reported. To give you a perspective, the swine flu vaccine was suspended after 3 deaths and after 94 paralysis cases, 4 of those leading to deaths. They stopped it after 7 deaths at the most, whereas at least 38,000 deaths, and the COVID vaccine was never recalled or reconsidered or anything like that. But then you look at the World Health Organization, led by Bill Gates, and he spoke out about this. I wrote the quote down. All right. This is what Bill Gates said about concerning overpopulation. If we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 to 15%. Lower our population, which he feels like is too much. So he's saying new vaccines that are going to kill people, healthcare procedures that aren't going to give us proper healthcare, that are going to lead to us dying, reproductive health services to abort babies so we don't have as many people. He wants to lower our population. And no one's talking about that. No one's talking about the founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates, saying he wants to kill people, murder people, and keep new people from being born through abortion. No one's talking about it. Crickets. Nothing. Tommy Tuberville hadn't said a thing about it. Not one thing. Because he's probably got some of Bill Gates' money in his wallet. I don't know how. McPheeters talks about the educational system too. Echoes George Carlin in talking about the educational system, about the true owners, the truest deep state doesn't want education that teaches our young people to be critical thinkers and be creative and have the ability to connect. They want people who are obedient and who are able to just work in a factory. And that comes from John D. Rockefeller, because he wanted people that he could hire to work in his factories. And so it's just gone from there. And nobody's bothered to even try to rethink education. Some people have the idea of abolishing the Department of Education, which might be a good idea. I don't think you necessarily have to. I think you can just use it properly. But it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if it shut down either. It would certainly save us some money. I'm going to try to go ahead and wrap this up. There's a lot more I could talk about with this, but I want to keep this short. Tommy Tuberville is not the only Republican candidate for governor. Those of you who are just thinking you're going to vote for Tuberville just because he's the big name, you're not going to consider anybody else, please do your research. Consider Ken McPheeters. Go to kenforgov.com. Go to rumble.com and look up Ken McPheeters. His username there is Captain Ken1. Matter of fact, I'll try to share it. There's a lot more I could talk about this, but again, I don't want to just sound like I'm regurgitating everything he's saying. Okay. But you, the people, pick who you want to be governor. Not the establishment in deep state in D.C., not people behind curtains here in Alabama and Montgomery. You. All those groups, they can try to influence you however you want to. On May 19th and November 3rd, you go to the polls and you vote for who you want to be the governor. They don't pick for you. You do. You don't have to pick whoever the mainstream media is covering the most. And do your own research. Let's elect somebody who's truly going to shake up the establishment. Somebody who's going to expose the deep state and who's going to increase the wealth in our pockets by doing very simple things that the establishment won't want to do because it will expose them and it will take money out of their pockets that they're not entitled to and it doesn't even exist in their pockets. But that's an even bigger story. All right. I'm at 25 minutes. Hope y'all enjoyed this. I will be back for episode 3. Stay tuned and take care of yourselves, Alabama. I will see you all next time. Thank you very much.